question everything. Don't believe me. Don't believe anybody. Yeah. What I tell everybody is the only way that you can know truth is through your own personal experiences.
That's it. Yep.
Now, if I had one or two of these, then I would not really have a cup to hold it. But realistically, in the past 30 years, I've probably had close to 1,000 of these, and I can control how I make the connection. And I know an out-of-body experience, and that there's no way you can prove that you had an out-of-body experience to somebody, because it's no different. If I was the only person in the world that dreamed, how could I prove to you that I actually dream? You'd be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Nobody does that.
Yeah, I know Monroe tried to do it like by affecting physical things, and he tried a couple of things, but there really isn't. Even in the Monroe Institute, if you listen to all of the Gateway Explorer stuff, there's some pretty revealing evidence that, man, they definitely had an out-of-body experience, but it never 100% definitively like proves that they had one, Well, and the whole thing is you're trying to prove something that's spiritual in a physical world. Right.
And so to me, it's not about proof. It's about understanding. It's about manipulation. It's about getting the whole picture. And so with all of these experiences, I go there, I bring information. A lot of the information is generalized information. Some of it had to do with me, and some of it was just like, this doesn't really make much sense to me. But what I did discover is when you are consciously going somewhere, say whether it's the astral or somewhere else, and you're in a localized area, those beings are going to flock to you. And they're going to flock to you like a tourist guide would be at the pyramids. Yeah. They're all going to want to sell you their service. Now, if you buy into it, then they're going to lead you everywhere. And they're going to be the ones to tell you everything. So what happened was, I'm going on there, and several times, not long after I began doing this, I was told, there's a way that we can keep those portals open, and we can show you how. And I said, oh no, that's a red flag right there, man. That tells me there's manipulation going on here. So I said, no, thank you. Didn't take any interest. And slowly as time went on, they weren't hanging around me like they were before. Now, let me give you an example based upon what happens when you go to these places and you're being told all this information. People buy into it without questioning anything. Now, misinformation means there's a little bit of truth, just enough to sell you on the point, but the rest of it is bullshit.
Yeah, that's manipulation 101. Yeah. Every
being, everywhere, it doesn't matter where they're at, has their own agenda. Mm-hmm. You have to remember that. Doesn't matter if you're on the astral. It doesn't matter if you're in another galaxy or another dimension. Everyone has their own agenda. You don't know what it is. When you go on their playing field, they are going to manipulate you. They're going to manipulate how they look. They can make themselves look like anything to make you feel more comfortable. So in my case, a lot of times it was a human image. I knew it wasn't a human, but they made the human image so that I would be comfortable talking to them. I would trust them. And then the background would most likely be like a town that I would recognize. So it was all about me feeling comfortable. The other thing is that people don't understand is there's a whole record system, like, the Akashic records. These beings have a connection with those records because it's 24/7 video, audio. Everything about us is in those records, and they have access to it. So they know everything about you before you even get there. So whatever you want to hear, they're going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. So when people leave Earth because they want to get away to somewhere that's free and spiritual and stuff, and they go to the astral, what you're doing is you're leaving Gen Pop prison and you're going into the prison yard. You're still in the prison. You're just going into the yard. And all the beings that work on the astral all work for the warden. You're not getting anywhere. You're not freeing yourself at all. And if you buy into their bullshit, then what you're going to do is you're going to just keeping their agenda going because what we're experiencing here on Earth is just another level of what's going on in the astral. They are created for damage control. All the people that escape Earth, they are there to manipulate those people into following them and only believing what they are told, so they don't learn anything more than they would learn on Earth. Because
so we keep recycling or something.
Put it this way: with all the psychics and all the people that have spirit guides and all the angels and everything, why do we have 460,000 children missing every year in the United States?
Yeah, doesn't make a lot of sense. I know exactly what you're saying.
If we had 100 politicians missing every year? Shut the country down. We can't have this. But we can have all these children missing. There's a lot of things going on. So if they were really helping us, then we would be finding these kids and they wouldn't be having this problem. So we have to look at things realistically and understand that the manipulation is a multi-level manipulation on us. So it's good to look, it's good to find truth, but you need to experience it on your own. Right. And that's why when I go and explore, I'm going there, I don't make any judgment calls. I don't think about anything other than getting the information, bringing it back, documenting, and at that point, I start to determine what there is there, and also apply that to what I've experienced in the past. And sometimes it might be years before I can put that information together and be able to correlate it into something that really works. But everything that I've experienced personally is what I base my opinions on and what I base what's happening on.
Yeah, so I study the out of body stuff, but also study the, Hermetic mystery schools and stuff too. And these guys in the mystery schools say it more than, the out of body travelers do, that the astral realm is full of deceptive beings, and it's full of all kinds of things that are deceptive. So they developed ways to test the beings and all the stuff because they knew it was a massive world of illusions, So yeah, it's crazy to think about.
Yeah, and it's as with anybody, you wouldn't trust somebody off the street to just come up and give you a bunch of information, And most likely, like when I communicate with these beings, what they tell me, I really don't pay much attention to it. I mean, I'll document everything, but there's not going to be any groundbreaking like things like, oh yeah, we're going to come save you guys, and this is how we can help. You can help yourselves. No. If anybody believes that anybody is going to come here and save us, they're in the wrong world, because that's not going to happen. The only people that are going to save us, or the only beings that are going to save us, are ourselves. And the only way we're going to get to that point is by understanding and realizing that we have the potential to help ourselves. We have the potential to overpower anything that comes our way. Since we are spiritual beings, we don't need to rely on technology. We don't need to rely on all this stuff. We've been convinced that because we've been programmed to understand that.
Yeah.
So we have the potential as spiritual beings. We are creators, but we are creators trapped within a prison. In order for us to be manipulated, first we need to be confined to a low vibrational human body, which is one, and then we need to be separated from our source, and then we need to be highly insulated from our source. And one thing that I remember you in one of your podcasts, you had mentioned about the blocks. Why are we being blocked? Mm-hmm. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Or like when you try to have an out-of-body experience, a lot of times you get blocked and that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah, I got shoved back in my body, and I did peel myself out of body. I mean, I got, what you were trying to do at first, I did it. It took me forever, but I did it. And then I tried to keep doing it again, and just weird, like one time I was blind, one time things were fuzzy, and another time I got halfway out, And I said this thing. I said, release me by life and light. I command you to release me by life and light, is what I said. And I don't even know where the hell that voice came from. And it wasn't my voice, but it came out of me. And these little Rorschach looking figures or whatever, they just, I mean, in a matter of a millisecond, just came down and just shoved me right back in my body. It was crazy. It was really crazy.
Well, let me give you a description of what we're up against, just in general. This is our situation in Earth, and I wrote this in my last book. It says we are all currently suspended within a multi-layered, heavily insulated, and cryptically manipulated existence that monopolizes our collective for the benefit of a self-serving parasitic race. That's where we're at. We are going up against high levels of manipulation, multi-levels of it, as well as technology. In order to keep us down, in order to keep us under control, they have to keep us thinking that we're only human beings, that we're not spiritual beings. They want to get rid of all the information that has to do with spirituality, and they want us to believe that everything that matters is here on Earth. All the drama that happens in your life, they try to keep you
material
overwhelmed.
Focused, yeah.
Keep you overwhelmed with it. When in reality, we have the ability to create universes for ourselves. But the insulation and all of the vibrational strategies make it more difficult for us to connect with our source. But the problem is, now you said, you feel like you're being blocked and stuff like that.
Well,
the only way you can get
when I started manifesting things into my life, like I really stepped into what you're talking about, right? And without being afraid, and things started manifesting in my life like crazy. But we all get to a point, I think, where when we start manifesting stuff, that we come up to this place where we're not, I don't know, but for me, things started getting so good that you start to question it. And I think there's something about fear or something that when it comes in, other things start trying to block your manifestation, so to speak, right? And then there's like a war going on for just how creative are you, and then people come out and start questioning you and all kinds of different things, right? And it wasn't that way at first. First you were inspiring people, but once you really start manifesting, then the dark crap comes out, and it's weird.
I say adapt and persevere. Do not let anything, anytime, for any reason, get in your way. Yeah. You are the bulldozer and they are the traffic cones. What I have found is all these years, I haven't had anybody to talk to. I haven't had anybody to ask. And you talk about levels of frustration. I was beyond that. And I still get frustrated and it's still difficult. But then again, I'm the type of person that once I set my mind to it, I have the drive to push me through anything. Even if I feel at times that I'm not really pushing forward, as long as I still remain focused on that, I will not let anything get in my way. Now, when you bring up what I call the dark ones, they will be there. They are here. And what I have found is, and when I was a kid, I had a lot of really bad nightmares. Yeah. Didn't have them for many years. And they started about, 10, 12 years ago. They started again. I said, you got to be kidding me. This is ridiculous. So every time they would start to come into my dream, it would pixelate and it would be black. And it was a darkness that absorbs light. So you can't see through it. So it would start to get, it would be like a normal dream, and all of a sudden it starts to darken, and I know what's going on. I'm pulled out of the dream. There's a portal. So it was happening every time I'm pulled into a portal. Finally, I got desensitized to the point where it didn't bother me anymore. I'm like, screw this. I'm going to figure out what this is. So I got to a point where it was me and someone else sitting at the table in my dream. And at that point, I became aware and I was lucid in that dream, and it started getting darker and darker. And finally, this figure walks to the other side of the table and grabs something that was mine in the dream from the table, and I smashed the other one. And I said, it doesn't matter. So I went up and I stood to him face to face. And as the closer I got, the more light was absorbed and I could not see anything. It was like standing in front of a black wall in the dark. Mm-hmm. So I stood there. I was showing no fear. Do not show fear. Do not show any emotion other than let it know that it means absolutely nothing to you. It is not anything to be afraid of. Stand your ground. I turned my back on it and I walked away and I woke up. What happened after that was I was pulled out of that into another portal. And this time it was in a room. It was almost looked like a room and the walls kind of looked like it might have been in like a dungeon or something like that. But there was a three-dimensional image that was kind of floating in like a couple feet off the ground, as if it was a three-dimensional screen, but there was no screen, there was no electronics, and it was showing me what that being looked like. And it showed me a reptilian being with 2 legs and 2 arms. Well, not one time in my life I had ever believed or seen or anything, any reptilian images or anything of that nature, because I had never experienced them. And the only reason I would even give any weight to that is the fact that I'd never been lied to in these portals before, and I knew there was something behind it. It just wasn't showing me what it really looked like. So I believe that's probably what it was. But it was, like I said, they can make any images that they want to appear as when you're on their plane, which is on the astral plane. So I wasn't surprised when I saw that it wasn't that. I mean, they leave it up to your imagination to hopefully, pull up the worst fearing thing you could imagine by showing you just the darkness, and then you would just go off from there. But it didn't affect me. So
just a question. A lot of this stuff, I think, comes from our unconscious, right? I'm not saying that it's not real at all. But as a matter of fact, I sometimes wonder if it's more real than what we're dealing with here. But the thing is if I look at Thomas Campbell's explorations or William Buellman's or Robert Monroe's, it seems like everybody's out-of-body experiences are quite different, right? And I'm not saying that all of these guys did run up against boundaries and certain things and beings like that, but it seems like, could it be, and I'm only asking this, could it be the fact that our beliefs are creating some of this stuff, or maybe our beliefs are revealing more of this stuff? Because, there are people that have traveled out of body for years and years and wrote tons of books on it, like Monroe's one of them, William Buellman's another one. And I'm not finding parallels with this stuff other than the initial experiences of the out of body states, right? Or what happens when we go out of body, and some of the blocks that happened, and like William would say, things like you just have to command your way through if there's certain blocks, but he never would talk about, I don't think he ever talked about portals or reptilians or anything like that. So I'm just wondering, like, do you think it only affects certain people, or is it just an awareness thing, or how is all that working?
Okay. All right. Let me say that. And I realized this back in the 80s. You're going to have people that are manipulating whatever they're writing, and it's for a reason. Okay. Mm-hmm. Just the same way as when you run into manipulation in the astral, it's the same way on here on Earth. You have corruption, you have manipulation. Now, we are manipulated on Earth all the time. So why would you think that it couldn't happen in there? The metaphysical field in itself has been manipulated for decades. Now, when I first started this whole out-of-body thing, I would read a book. Oh, they have astral sex. You have all this stuff. That's all BS. For somebody to even write that, and they published it. And so what I do is I find people and I listen to what they have to say based upon the information that they present. Mm-hmm. And I have to make a judgment call because I can see if things are, relevant or they're not. I have to look at things based on relevancy. Now, when I have an experience in a dream and I'm dreaming, that's one thing. But when I'm consciously aware, because I'm consciously there, then the manipulation is much different. So at that point when you're consciously aware, yeah, I can say that that maybe if you've got all these fears, you might be manifesting something on that plane, but that's not the problem. I don't have fear of it. I'm not projecting that. And once you have a good grasp of how you're thinking and feeling, then you understand when you run up against something, it doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't fit. So if I was going into if I was having this fear-based issue, when I go into meet these other beings, then I would probably be seeing dragons or like bats
Monroe
or whatever.
would say, people thought he was the devil,
I don't project it. So what happens is I've been doing this for so long that what I have to do is, when I'm consciously there, my focus 100% is on the experience.
Right.
I don't think of anything other than my focus on what is happening in front of me, what is happening around me, and what is the information so that I can retain it and bring it back. That's my only goal, to share that information and to understand how this works. So I'm not bringing all this baggage with me, and I've been doing it for so long that if there was a pattern of that nature, I would have picked it up a long time ago.
Yeah,
I was never scared of anything.
Sure, I'm not necessarily talking about your
I know
fear.
I know what you're saying.
I'm just saying, like, there's like two camps in this thing. I haven't found an in between yet. So there's people that are saying, look, you're only consciously trapped here because you're consciously trapped here because you haven't woke up yet. And then there's this other camp that's saying, well, you're being manipulated and imprisoned on purpose, right? Like, this is what I'm getting at here. We can all be warriors and not afraid of stuff, or even like you just said, when Thomas Campbell, when he goes into the astral realm, he doesn't give into his emotions or his thoughts or his belief. He just simply observes, and that's all he does, because it keeps him there longer when you do that, right? So
okay, let me ask you this question. What do you think? What do you think personally? And try to back it up with some experiences so that you have a better understanding of what your thoughts are on that.
What do I think personally? Well, based on my experience, I think at least half of what you experience in your life is your own beliefs. Also,
your own experience.
Yeah, your own experiences. The other half, is there real manipulation going on out there? Absolutely. Everywhere you go, there's manipulation and agendas going on. I used to live in this world of, oh my God, it breaks my heart, it breaks my heart, it breaks my heart, But at this point, it's like, well, if whether you're human or some out of body being or whatever, if you want to be a manipulative person, right, then or a being or whatever, that's your thing. I'm only looking for like authenticity, right? So, but what you're saying, like, I do experience manipulation everywhere I go. I'm just not as angry at it as I used to be. I've reached my peak of anger about it,
Right. Well, then what I'm trying to portray is, obviously, we're all manipulation. We have a high level of corruption around us. Now,
sure, yeah.
So we all have a good idea on where this world is going, and the way for us to be able to conserve our freedoms. To me, the conservation of freedom of individuality, is probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
We should all have the rights to be free and do whatever we choose to do as long as it doesn't infringe on the rights of others. That's a pretty simple way to look at life. So when I look at things and I understand and I can see what's happening, there's a high level of manipulation that's creating this. And I've seen a lot of what happens that we have the ability to do. So when I look at it, I think, okay, yeah, we're being stunted, we're doing this. And I've read a ton of stuff on yoga. I've read a lot of metaphysical stuff. Over the years, I've just like had a ton of information. And I can see holes in a lot of it. And anything, even the religious backing. A lot of that came down and is filtered through, and it's changed over the years. So we don't even know our own history. The reality, we don't even know what it is.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So everything we get has been regurgitated. And we've been programmed so that usually what's happening is the mass of people is under a belief system that is totally incorrect. But since the majority believe it, if you're a minority in the system, then you're either ridiculed or you're not believed.
Yeah.
To me, I'm not looking at good or bad. I'm looking at real truth. That's what matters. Because
which I'm with you. You can't get to that without through your own experience is the only thing that's going to tell you the truth. Yeah.
Right. Your perception and your perspective. And that's why I tell everybody, question everything. And then you need to experience it for yourself. Now, not everybody's going to have the same experiences, but we all have this level of ability that we can tap and we can access. But the only way you're going to find it is to look within. Now, I'm not saying look within and ask somebody else, a guide or whatever. Look within. It is there. You will get answers, but you might not like the answers that you get.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because I mean, I have no doubts that I see what you're saying. Like, something had to be manipulated. You have to have, in order to create an illusion or a belief or a perception to begin with, you have to have some form of manipulation, you know, for sure. And that's compacted here big time. You know, in the Western mysteries, like and I'm not talking about all of them. I'm just saying specifically, like the Kabbalists teach that the Earth, and it kind of corresponds with what you said, is that the Earth is just a subset of the astral realm. It's like a I'm trying to think of a cul-de-sac, basically a denser cul-de-sac of what's actually in the astral realm and coming down into dense form, you know. But then again, if that were the case, we can't perceive all the stuff that you're seeing or that I've experienced in our human body. So we kind of have to go out of our body to perceive some other things, right? So